Because if I was working for a more sensitive organization, you know, obviously it's a fucking cage fighting promotion. It's like, how sensitive can you get?
Yeah.
But with some social issues, you know, this, like, if I was working for the NBA, I probably would have been fired a decade ago. You know?
Yeah, it's,
easily.
The MMA is definitely or the UFC is definitely an animal in itself. How did you get into that position? Did you know the Dana White and you started? For you, I always wanted to ask you this at the Comedy Store. How did you become kind of the voice of the UFC?
Well, I started in 1997. I was the post-fight interviewer. That was it was just a position that was available, and the UFC was very small back then. Very few people knew what it was. It was off of cable. You couldn't get it on cable. You could only get it on satellite, and they needed someone to do post-fight interviews.
But
so
you were in that world to begin with?
I was in the martial arts world. You know, I used to teach martial arts for a living before I became a comedian. I used to fight. Fought in a lot of Taekwondo tournaments and had some kickboxing fights, and I'd always been a martial artist since I was a kid. And so I just was interested in watching the UFC, and then I started training in jiu-jitsu. And when I was training in jiu-jitsu, I was just a white belt. I was just starting out. That's when I got hired by the UFC to be a post-fight interviewer. But I only did that for 2 years, and then I quit. It was just too much, and it was actually like I was losing money. I would make more money doing a weekend at a comedy club than I would doing the UFC, and it just got to a point where it was too much of a pain in the ass. And so I still remained a fan, but I backed away. And then the UFC was purchased by this company called Zuffa in 2001. And when that happened, they started putting on shows in Vegas, and I would go there with my friends. They got me free tickets. They reached out, and they would try to get celebrities to go sit there so that it would, because they were very small at the time, and they were hemorrhaging money, and they were trying to build it up. And in talking to Dana White, one day, he, you know, I was talking to him about fights going on in Japan. I'm like, have you ever seen Sato fight? Do you know do you know Sakura? Do you know this guy? And I was bringing all these names, and he was like, do you want to do commentary? I'm like, I don't want to do commentary, man. I'm here to get drunk and watch people kick the shit out of each other. I'm not here to work. And he talked me into it for one show, a UFC 37.5. It was a show that was on one of those Fox sports networks, smaller networks, and I think it was the Best Damn Sports Show, period, was a part of it. I did that, and the rest is history.
Wow.
And then I did like 12 of them for free. Like, the UFC didn't have any money. Well, they were hemorrhaging money. I mean, there were rich people that owned it, but it was not a profitable venture.
Yeah.
And I said, look, just get me there, get me my friends' tickets, and I'll do it. And so that's how I operated for like over a year. And then I just became the commentator. It's just weird.
That's crazy.
It's just Dana White. He's a crazy man, and he's got a weird way of looking at things that's very effective. And in his crazy mind, he's like, let's take this guy who's never even thought about being a commentator and make him our commentator. I mean, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I mean, I didn't have any training at all in sports commentary. I just would see what was happening and start talking about it. You know, which is really like the wrong. I was more even play-by-play and color. It was like doing both of them at the same time. It was really weird.
And as far as you doing that, do you get any notes from anybody going, hey, Joe, try this, try that, or you just develop that voice all on your own?
100% on my own.
So
the only thing that I had was there's like Mark Delagrate, who's a good friend of mine. He's one of the top trainers in the world. He's in the truck, and I can communicate with him. There's a button where I can communicate with him, and we talk about stuff. Like, I can say, does he look like he's limping to you? And he's like, yeah, there's something wrong with his leg. I go, the left leg, right? He's like, yeah. And then I'll start talking about it. Like, I'll be able to bounce it back and forth with him. Or sometimes it's obvious, and I'll say it myself. Then I'll ask him, like, am I wrong? Is he dropping his hand? Or is it like... It's a nice thing to have someone to bounce things off. It used to be Eddie Bravo. Eddie Bravo used to do it as well, where I would be able to talk to him about certain positions because he would be in the truck, and I'd be able to ask him like which his left leg's in jeopardy right now, right? Or he needs to step over with his right leg. We'd be able to go over, because like there's some aspects of martial arts that are extremely technical, especially jiu-jitsu, when things go to the ground and you're trying to do commentary, and I have to decipher which is his left leg, which is his right leg, where's he tied up, where's he tangled, and I'm doing it in real time while I'm trying to be entertaining and talking. It's very complicated, you know, but nobody taught me how to do it. I just figured out how to do it.
And you're not looking at like a Jim Lampley or anybody in the broadcasting world when it comes to fights this is something that you developed on your own. Like sometimes you look at, as a comedian, you look at other comedians, say the Pryors or the Carlins or whatnot. You didn't have kind of like a mentor?
No, not necessarily, because there wasn't one. There wasn't a lot of guys that did it for martial arts commentary. There was John Peretti, who was excellent. He was one of the very best, who was actually the UFC matchmaker and a commentator when I first started. He was very good. There's a guy named Jeff Armstrong. He was very good too. He was there when I first started too. He actually ran a promotion called Hook and Shoot. He's excellent. He really knows what he's doing. And then there's a few other guys, you know, that also did it. But there's like, what I do as far as like doing commentary for MMA, there's maybe 10 guys in the world that do it. Yeah, you know, that really do it on a high level. Maybe 10 guys. Wow. I mean, between ONE FC, between Brave, and then the UFC, Bellator, PFL, there's maybe 10 guys on the planet that are doing it. Which is not a lot of people. No. And there's a lot in the UFC now where fighters are now transitioning to become commentators, and oftentimes they're the best at it. Like Michael Bisping just did this past weekend. He was the UFC middleweight champion, and he's awesome at it already. Did one show. They know more, obviously, because they've been in there. You know, they have that added element of actually having fought in the UFC, which is gigantic.
Yeah, I could see. I think Paulie Malignaggi. He seems to be very, very
fantastic.
Yeah.
He's very good. He's very good. Very technical, but also very aware. And fighters can see things that maybe the average person can't see. Like they see when someone's slowing down. They see when someone's laying back. They see when someone got hurt to the body. They see like little things that maybe a person who's never fought before doesn't see.